I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, February 25th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Is there any public comment this evening? I see no public. Okay, moving on. First Selectmen's report. A couple of things. I want to bring some bills to your attention tonight, so I'll take a couple minutes here. Pass that open. First of all, excuse me, the Environmental Protection Commission will hold a public hearing on the proposed design plan for Weed Beach improvements and also a proposed gravel running track and plank boardwalk on the Diller property on Wednesday, March 6th at 7:30 p.m. in this room, if you're interested in hearing about the environmental component of those two projects. I had the honor of receiving Congressman Himes today in my office. He came to visit to talk with me about issues that overlap between local and federal government. For small towns like ours, there really aren't many, but we did discuss, kind of germane to some of our budget discussions, is this possibility of losing our T-band channels. Sorry, excuse me. And the possible need to get new frequencies for emergency communications. Congressman Himes was actually not aware of this pending problem, so he promised. He took a bunch of information that Mark McEwen put together for us, and he's going to go back and have his staff research that and let us know where that stands, if that's something that we really have to be prepared to budget for, I think, essentially as we move up to the year 2020. So a couple bills of interest. I'm sure you've heard all of the buzz on there's several bills that are recommending some form of school regionalization. Just to give everybody the information, if you're interested in testifying on any of these school regionalism bills, there's going to be a public hearing held this Friday, March 1st, beginning at 1 p.m. in the Legislative Office Building. You can also provide written testimony to the Education Committee, and that needs to be submitted by the 28th at 3:30 p.m. And we will post some directions on how to do that on our town website, and we'll make sure that the media has those instructions. It's pretty easy. So, a couple of bills, three that are noteworthy. Senate Bill 454, introduced by Senate President Martin Looney, would, effective July 1st, 2021, would require any school districts in towns with less than 40,000 population would be forced to consolidate with a neighboring district. So that would be towns like ours. We're 21,000 people. Senator Duff introduced Senate Bill 457 that would require any school district with fewer than 2,000 students to join a new or existing regional school district. Our school district has about 4,900 students, so Senator Duff's bill would not apply to the town of Darien. And then there's Governor's Bill 7192, and that bill recommends a number of things. It implements the sharing and consolidation of services within municipalities between towns and boards of ed, and among municipalities, and on a regional basis. It restructures the Advisory Commission on Intergovernment Affairs to streamline state and local government service delivery. It creates a commission on shared school services, which develops a plan for redistricting or consolidation of school services and school districts. And they, in that, the creation of the Shared Services Commission requires a comprehensive report due in December of 2020 that with a public hearing to follow on the consolidation of school services and school districts. It also requires towns and their related school districts to report to OPM, the State Department of Education, and the Department of Administrative Services on the services that have already been consolidated or will be consolidated by January 1st of 2020. And that report is actually due this coming September. It also intends to consolidate tax assessment and tax collection on a regional basis within the councils of governments. And it promotes the consolidation of public service answering points in towns with less than 40,000 in population by the year 2024. If we don't consolidate our PSAPs, and again, I think this will be germane to our discussion tonight on civilian dispatchers, we would lose any future state funding for support for our dispatch centers. Senate Bill 431 is a property tax reform bill. It would add 1 mil to our real property tax that would go to the state. It would repeal the local motor vehicle tax and impose a statewide motor vehicle tax of between 15 and 19 mils that would go to the state. It would exempt the first $25,000 of assessed personal property value for businesses, and it would impose a $50,000 homestead exemption for homeowners. And interesting for, I think for, especially for Mark and Pam, you have great interest in this. Senate Bill 753 would impose and make permanent a ban on fracking waste for all gas and oil extraction activities. I know there's bills also in Hartford about banning or putting a state tax on plastic bags. I'm not sure where they stand, but when I get more information about that, I will certainly share that. I think that the RTM will likely share that too. That's just a small representation of the legislation that's being proposed in Hartford. I'll try and keep you as up to date as I can as I get more information.
I don't have anything of note tonight.
Okay. All right. So new business, discuss and take action to approve our proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-2020. So it's been a little while since we've been together to discuss our budget. Kate's handed out some materials this evening to show you budget comparisons, a list of potential capital expenditures that we would like to recommend for bonding consideration. The one thing that I would, oh, never mind, I answered my own question. And then a comprehensive list of the changes that the Board of Selectmen has made to date regarding our budget.
It does also include one or two that you had not talked about that we're proposing.
Okay.
Some of it based on questions that I've received from individual members since. On page 2, the...
Okay, which document are we on now?
Pardon?
Which document are we working with?
Oh, I'm sorry, on the cut list.
The cut list, okay.
There are 2 items to take out the Paratech equipment for Newton Heights, defer that to the next year. That's $95.80. And then Fire Marshal remove the vehicle replacement. We would leave a small amount in there to be able to change over the radio equipment, but we have a vehicle that will be coming off the police department that they can use.
Perfect.
And I think, was that it then?
Then on the ECS and...
Oh, the ECS, yes, sorry. ECS and the teacher's retirement, we have added both in. So we are now assuming that we will get ECS money this year. And we have also recommended that you put an amount in the Board of Finance contingency that would be sufficient to cover the proposed municipal contribution to the teacher's retirement system. Should that go into effect, we would then start the process to transfer that money to the Board of Education budget for them to make the contribution.
I have to think about that for a second. So we have to budget for that
Mm-hmm.
in our budget.
Well, I'm recommending that it be on the town's budget.
The ECS.
No, the
No.
ECS always is. The contribution, I'm
Oh,
putting in a
the pension-
contingency
the
so
pension
that,
contribution. Okay.
on the off chance that it doesn't happen.
I'm just trying to follow what you said, looking at the pages.
Okay, so on page 1 of this cut list,
Yeah,
the fourth line down, from the top under the revenues, that's where the ECS money going in
yeah.
is shown.
428, yeah.
And then keep going down, almost to the bottom of the expenditures, contingency, page 230.
Right.
Increasing it by 445,000.
And that's for the
That's enough to
pensions.
cover the teacher's retirement contribution. So what we would recommend is that if the governor's proposal passes, then we start the process to transfer it to the Board of Education budget. But don't do that until we know for sure that we're going to have to make the contribution.
I think I just need a little more help here. Why is this an expense that we should budget for in the Board of Selectmen budget? If it's ultimately a Board of Education responsibility, why would the Board of Finance not suggest at their level that the Board of Education include it in their budget?
I would say the process to transfer it from the general fund, from the town side of the budget to the Board of Education budget, if the governor's legislation passes, would be easier than the process to try and take it back if the governor's proposed legislation does not pass.
I see.
I see, so you're giving, the Board of Ed would then hold the 400,000, we wouldn't, if we budgeted in with them.
If we
or
budgeted and it didn't happen,
They could still hold it.
yes.
Got it.
This is different than what was said on
But
this.
couldn't the Board of Finance decide at their level to create a Board of Finance contingency amount equal to the contribution? Are they?
That's what we're suggesting happen.
Okay.
Oh, you want to defer it, not put it in now, let the Board of Finance add it? You could do that.
I'm just very reluctant to add it into the Board of Selectmen's budget. I have to be honest with you. If it's not a Board of Selectmen, if it's ultimately not a Board of Selectmen, it's all fungible. You know, for any taxpayers that are listening, it's one big pot of taxpayer money, we get that. But if it's not actually a Board of Selectmen responsibility to make that payment, then I have some trouble accounting for it here. But I'm open to this discussion, the rest of my board. And Jen, please tell us if you feel for accounting purposes that you feel one way or another.
My concern is just that it makes it into the budget, whether it be that you actually include it in what you adopt is one option, or we could put it in your communication to the Board of Finance that you discussed it, you chose not to include it in your budget for the reasons you just stated, but that you recommend they consider setting up a contingency for that purpose at their level.
Yeah. In many respects, I feel much more comfortable doing that. I believe that, Mark and I were having this conversation earlier today about, what do we think will pass, what won't pass. And I don't really want to take those gambles when we're crafting our budget right now. I don't want to guess about what's going to pass. I have a good sense that this will, but we certainly don't know for sure, and it seems somewhat putting the cart ahead of the horse to budget for it in the town's budget.
To tax for it.
To tax for it,
Yeah.
Get a tax
to recommend taxing for it at our level. But
I think Jen's suggestion is a good one. As long as you communicate to the Board of Finance your feelings, because we won't know by the time that the Board of Finance has to finalize the budget, we won't know. So they're going to have to make a decision what to do. my concern is just that we put it in a place that we can control it until it is known that we need to use it.
The only reason I don't think we should have it in here is we really are the policy board. And to me, this is a financial policy versus a policy of the town. So I think we should recommend to the Board of Finance, but I don't think we should have it in our budget.
I think it's important we have this conversation, so I'd like to hear from everybody on this.
Well, the conversation we've just been having makes a lot of sense. And what I was thinking about was there's a lot of concern on the part of a lot of the taxpayers. And they may be expecting us to take some preparations, for this onslaught that's coming. So, it's not an easy thing to answer. I don't like the idea, I never did, of taxing in advance, any more than we absolutely had to have our, general reserves.
I will say that if we budget for it this year, then we're setting a precedent for what we do in the coming years. And with the phase-in of the teacher pension sharing, it's over 3 years, and by 2022, the Board of Selectmen would have to budget $1.3 million for that contribution, so.
But Jamie, aren't you this year just trying to deal with the uncertainty of it? If you knew that it was had been passed and it was part of the ongoing cost of doing business, then you could turn around and say, no, that property belongs over here. But it's this first year of not knowing what's going to happen, that we're trying to deal with that uncertainty without going to the taxpayers and saying, pay for it.
That is exactly what
So
we're trying to do.
This is a unique turn year, rather than saying it's setting a precedent.
Right, but I do think Jen's right, you have the option, you don't have to include it in yours because it should not be a Board of Selectmen expense.
Right.
But if you feel that the Board of Finance should put it in the budget,
We can make
it
that
part of the
recommendation.
communication.
Right.
We can at least ask them to think about.
Yeah.
I
I mean,
think it's good then.
I do see that this is a unique
Yep,
proposition rather than setting a precedent.
okay. Okay.
And I appreciate what Mark was saying, is that I do think that our constituents are probably looking at us tonight and thinking, are we going to maybe make some heavier cuts, knowing that the possibility of things are coming down the line, and that maybe there's another conversation around our budget that maybe we wouldn't have had if that storm hadn't happened. But, is changing things tonight, that we should be prepared, even, more than just the retirement cost, the $400,000. But I do think that we have to be proactive, and if the Board of Finance can put it in the budget, they should. I agree with you that it shouldn't be on the Board of Selectmen's budget. I don't think that makes sense at all.
Okay.
But with that said, I don't want it to just be, I do like the idea that we would have control over it, putting it back in if it didn't pass. So I think I'm a bit torn on that.
I think you could express that opinion to the Board of Finance.
Okay.
I guess we don't feel that there's a chance that the percentage is going to change at all. I mean, it's just a matter of passing or not with the numbers that are forecasted, correct?
I think anything can change between now and the end of the legislative session.
Yep.
I do.
So these numbers could go up or down, so this would be a placeholder, which may not be an accurate placeholder regardless.
That's true.
But it's a thought process behind it, so I'm not saying it's not a good one,
It's one we've got now,
400,000 isn't exactly just a mere thought. It's a real placeholder.
Correct.
Well, and if it goes up,
Well, it could.
yeah.
It could. And you could have the automobile tax passed and you lose, $4.9 million of revenue.
Mm-hmm.
It would, There's lots of ifs.
So the other thing about whether it's the car tax or the real estate tax or whatever, well, the car tax specifically, we've had this conversation, I know the Board of Ed has also had the conversation, is that at budget time is not the right time, I mean, because of the timing, we're talking about it now, but if we do need to make some severe policy changes, I think maybe we need to have those conversations once our budget is handed over to the Board of Finance, not at this point in time, which obviously we're not going to do tonight, I don't think. We need to look at all these things isolated from the budget process, even though it's impacting.
Other than we do have a responsibility to mitigate.
Right, but like when kids bring up the
Budget
$4 million,
increase.
we're certainly,
Yep.
I think we've all worked hard, and I don't think, unless you guys have a lot more thoughts that I haven't heard, we're not finding millions of dollars in here tonight, so that's my only point. Not to say that we shouldn't be doing it, absolutely, and I think we need to continue to do it after our budget goes to the Board of Finance as well.
You may want to consider in your communications with the Board of Finance, asking that should they feel severe cuts need to be made, that they consult with you as the policy board as to where you would prefer that those cuts come.
Yep.
But all of this uncertainty is going to be just that until the legislative session is over with, correct? So, I mean, we're not going to know until somewhere at the end of June,
For sure.
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Correct,
At the earliest.
Yeah.
So
correct.
we're doing the best we can with what we know.
Right.
It would
Correct.
seem to me.
Yep.
And we're not trying to tax the taxpayer if we don't have to, which is the
Right.
reason for using the contingency. But we have to be prepared if all these things do pan out, or then we have to come back in here and just talk real hard. What have we got to cut?
I feel, in general, we worked hard and we have a good budget and we've made good decisions. If I were going to suggest reduction right now, it would be, number one, not huge, not particularly meaningful in terms of the scale of what we're looking forward to, and it would. Like we had these debates. Why would we do what project all at once instead of phasing it over 2 or 3 budget periods? And the answer was it's probably cheaper, to do it all at once. Does construction get cheaper as you move it out in time? No. Is it something we need? If it's something we need, then we need it. So I think I guess I just want to make it clear that I think we have a good budget. We didn't allow fat. We don't see stuff that we really want to cut, despite the thunderclouds on the horizon. It's not raining yet, and to try to prepare for that is very problematic in a couple of ways. One is the forecasting, and one is kind of pre-taxing for something that might be coming. That's not such a good idea. If it turns out we don't need that, then people are going to be really angry with us.
I mean, I'd rather open up the discussion about, the 3 dispatchers, some capital projects, rather than pre-taxing. I'd rather cut, personally.
Okay, so I think our specific question on the table is, how would you like to handle the teacher retirement system contribution? I think what I'm hearing here is that we should not include it in the Board of Selectmen budget, but recommend to the Board of Finance that they reserve for it. Is that, does everyone agree with that
Yep.
decision? Okay. Jack?
Having come back,
Is he going to the?
I don't want to speak for the Board of Finance, but when these conversations were occurring last year, the general opinion was not to reserve for these, but that if we get hit with a dollar amount, whether or not be the car tax or the teacher's pension, that the Board of Finance has the capability to do a supplemental tax.
Sure, yep,
And that's valuable in two ways.
yep. I think I understand what you're saying, Jack, and, honestly, I don't mean to cut you off, but I think all we're going to do is have that conversation with the Board of Finance.
No, I agree
Our
with
discussion
that.
here was, do we absorb it into our budget? And yes, I hear there's some great value in having not reserving for it, but that would be a decision by the Board of Finance.
Good point, Jack, thank you.
Okay, yes. Okay, thank you. Thanks for that good discussion. And Jack, I don't think that you were here. We are going to include in Selectmen revenues the proposed ECS grant.
Did you move the capital, the second part of the 300 forward? Unfortunately, we were doing teams increase, guys.
I'm not sure what you're
There
asking.
were several.
Haven't gotten there yet.
Yeah, we're not there yet.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So if there are no other changes to the cuts list, I think I heard from Pam that she'd like to open up a discussion on the civilian dispatchers and potentially some of our capital requests.
Just one thing to add.
Sure.
Yep. On the revenue side, we didn't talk about, but it's been noted that our investment income is projected to be $300,000 for the year. Half the year, we've already earned $267,000. I'm just wondering whether we could take that up to a little bit higher number, more like $500,000 for the year.
So we've been discussing that internally, and I know that Jack has made that recommendation, and Bert has done some calculations to that regard. Typically, we let those decisions up to the Board of Finance when it comes to adjusting revenues. In fairness, those estimates come from the town treasurer. I don't have any reason to doubt her estimates, so I'd like to ask that the Board of Finance consider that conversation when we deliver the budget to them.
Okay, fair enough. Sorry. That's all.
Okay, so let's first talk about, and I could say dispatch, that would be so witty, wouldn't it? Dispatch with the conversation with the dispatchers. We have struggled for a number of years with this request to civilianize the dispatch at the Darien Police Department. And I think thanks to Kate, this year, we're really looking at the dispatch. I think we're resigned to the idea, I'll say, that civilianizing the dispatch does a couple of things. It creates a better model for dispatching where you have professional telecommunicators doing the important work of dispatch. But it also allows for the redeployment of sworn police personnel to become a dedicated narcotics officer and an SRO at the middle school. And I know at our last meeting, Pam, you had some significant concerns over an SRO at the middle school. I don't know if you had a chance to look through some of the materials provided by Board of Ed Chair Achman. There's two parts of that conversation. One is the financial investment in that personnel, and the other is, the policy conversation about an SRO. And so, I'd love to hear from everybody again tonight how you're feeling. I'm personally ready to make the investment in these three, and only these three civilian dispatchers. You might recall that we've civilianized the day shift. This would civilianize the evening shift, allowing for the scheduling of personnel to move between those two shifts. The full implementation would require another 3 civilian dispatchers in the overnight shift. I'd really have to be sold on the wisdom of doing that. In addition, I am really going to be interested to see the legislation about the consolidation of public service answering points that's moving forward in Hartford. And in many ways, by moving to a civilian dispatch model, it more easily facilitates that change. So I do support an SRO. I strongly support a dedicated narcotics officer. And for those reasons, I'm willing to make the investment this year in civilianizing the evening shift. I really want to hear from everybody on this.
Well, I think asking our taxpayers to take on the $332,000 and hiring 3 dispatchers at this point, as you said, with the thunderclouds coming, with the uncertainty of what the consolidation looks like in Hartford, I think is just an expense that at this time seems like a luxury. I am not sold on the idea of a full-time SRO at the middle school when it doesn't decrease any of our costs in regards to the security of the school at all. It's just an additional cost to the school. There's no decrease. I can't really wrap my head around it in the least bit. I've been extremely impressed hearing the reports from the chief about how they're handling the narcotics issues in the area, how they collaborate across municipalities. And I feel like it's been extremely successful and will continue to be. I just think the $332,000 in perpetuity with what's coming down, what could be coming down from Hartford, is an added expense that this year seems like a luxury.
Would you guys like to go, or do you want me to go? I pay my respect totally what you're saying. I think every year I've sat on this board, so starting in the budget of 14, we've talked about civilian dispatchers. You had talked about it prior to me coming on. And it took me a long time to get there. And I do support the civilian dispatchers for a few different reasons, many of which Jamie has already said. But, you know, we have these police men and women that are trained. They certainly do a wonderful job in the dispatch, and they know what they're doing there, but they're really trained to be out doing police work. And here we have them in the dispatch office, so we've put a lot of taxpayer dollars into the training of them, and I believe that that's what they should be doing. I also had stated at the last time that if we do end up regionalizing, then we will be set to, we're not hiring additional police officers, and as far as the dispatchers, if they go to a region, then, you know, we'll still have to absorb costs, but it's not like hiring a specific 1 or 2 new policemen. I strongly believe that we need a narcotics officer, and I also strongly believe that it's been recommended by the chief as well as the Board of Education and many parents out there that it is time for an SRO at the middle school. So for that reason, I'm fully supporting the civilian dispatchers. You know, we had asked some questions, which, you know, about the walk-ins, and way back when, the very first time we ever talked about civilian dispatchers, the goal was to reduce the police force. But I think, unfortunately, SROs and narcotics, that's come a long way in the past 6 years. So we were talking about reduction, and now that's not going to happen. Because there are other specific needs that our town, it's all, I think one of our jobs is public safety, and if it's being recommended by the chief and by the police force that these are 2 positions that we need, I think we have to listen loud and clear to that. So I'm in support of the civilian dispatchers.
Gentlemen?
If we don't add the dispatchers and we want to do the SRO and the narcotics detective, then we're doing new hires in the police department, right? Additional,
Yes.
That's what I hear.
yeah. And the cost of a police officer is more than the cost of a
Dispatcher?
dispatcher.
Yes.
The question is the cost of 2 police officers more than 3 dispatchers? Probably.
No, it's not. The cost of 2 police officers is less than the cost of 3 dispatchers.
Okay.
But what you are missing, the other part that we get is the second person in the dispatch center during that evening shift. Right now, we operate with only 1 person in the dispatch center in the
Right,
evenings.
Right.
So we get the SRO, we get the narcotics officer, and we get 2 dispatchers at one.
And we get better dispatching.
Pardon?
Better dispatching, we would expect.
One would expect that people who do it on a regular basis, and that's what they're trained, that's what they're specifically trained to do, should do better than somebody who's trained for a different purpose. Not that the police do a crappy job.
I'll say it a different way. Professional telecommunicators should provide a consistency in dispatching that might not exist when you have
A rotating-
patrol officers or a combination of patrol officers and
Okay, that's what I meant
dispatchers.
by better, but
Yes.
that's more
Yep,
clear.
I think we're all
yes.
trying to say the same thing,
Yeah.
but you stated it.
I believe the narcotics problem in Connecticut is a regional concern, and it will definitely help us to have another guy on there. Now, the way I think it was described to me, certainly the way I'm thinking about the narcotics detective, is he's working a lot with the detectives in the surrounding towns,
Yes.
and he's collecting information. He may be helping them. They may be helping us. You know, I would expect, but, you know, both of those situations.
It's very true that when you're in the midst of a narcotics investigation, it's rare that it's confined to one municipality.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's well justified to continue with this plan with civilian dispatchers.
Okay.
And I've spoken in the previous meeting about the SRO.
Mhm.
If I could speak a little more clearly, there are a number of younger students and high school students who have difficulty in the process of growing up. And there are occasions when they have fears, either from bullying by their peers or fears about how things are going badly at home or who knows what. And it turns out that the SRO at the high school has been very helpful to students who express those fears. And I suspect that an SRO at Middlesex can be helpful as well. I would expect. So I think it's okay. We had a good plan. I'm glad we're rethinking it, but I'm willing to continue.
Kip?
Well, I just hate to spend money. Because the government bureaucracy just keeps growing and never gets smaller. But I'm listening to the fact, and I have 2 grandchildren that are going to be in the Middlesex school next year. And I've looked at the report, the presentation about what the SRO does. And, you know, there's a number of things between him, I guess the psychologists they're hiring for schools now. Unbelievable. It's very beneficial. I see the value of it. I also see the value of having a narcotics officer because Lord knows we've got a problem. All around the area we have a problem. The dispatchers, if that's the solution, looks like it might well be a temporary solution.
Could be.
According, I love this, public service answering points, that's called dispatch, right?
PSAPs, yep.
Always got to understand the language here. But under the governor's proposal, that by 2024, that would have to be consolidated. Well, certainly our cost, if it's going to be $300,000 the first year, maybe it'll be by third, fourth year, maybe it'll be $370. But we're not going to be paying $370 if we're on a regional basis, right? We should have some.
There should be substantial savings.
Well, it really depends. We
No, I know.
can't
There
make any
should be.
statements in that
No.
regard.
The word regionalization carries with it the great fraud that they may never find a savings dollar, but may spend more. But the theory is you're doing it to save money. So I would go along with this program. I'm in Pam's camp when you say, why would we spend money when knowing all these uncertainties? But I think this is probably where public safety is overrules this. If it was the Beautification Commission or something like that, I'd say no. But here, I'm going to go along and say yes.
I do want to add that I've asked Chief Osborne and our Emergency Management Director, Mark McEwen, to dig deep on the proposal for the consolidation of the PSAPs and get back to us with information about exactly what that would mean for us in terms of not only the logistics of doing that, where it would be housed, would our dispatchers be able to apply for jobs there, but if we choose to not consolidate, what's the financial impact to the town of Darien? What funding will we lose by making that decision? So that information will hopefully be coming forward before the budget process is over.
Jamie, one thing I forgot to mention that I talked about last time, and I don't know how we measured, is we talked about if we did civilianize, if we do have 3 more civilian dispatchers, to look into bringing back the fire dispatch.
Yes.
Yes.
So I still think we should go ahead and look into that.
I would agree.
And somehow evaluate, are we doing the best practice today, or by bringing it back, would that serve? I don't at all want to change the level of service. That's not the goal.
Yeah.
So if it's proven that it's in the right place for the right reasons, that's fine, but I think it's worth looking at. And it
I
could
would
have
agree.
some financial savings to us.
What was about it, $50,000?
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
about 55,000.
Exactly.
I think that's, we have to get the additional shift covered and then begin the evaluation of, the work, the load on them. And can we bring that back and do the same level of service that we do now?
I think it's interesting and maybe constructive to say that the fire departments are now using a regionalized dispatch system, and it's working very well for them. So that's just another.
CMed, it's the same system that
That the post uses.
the Post
Yeah.
53 uses, and it
Right.
works very well.
Okay, so that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
worth saying.
Right, I wouldn't even be having that conversation if we weren't civilianizing, bringing more civilian.
I wasn't going there. I was
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
there may be some fear, that a regionalized dispatch would be a bad idea. And it has been working well for us.
Okay, so what I'd like to do, so that we don't sort of get bogged down with the bigger issue of voting on the budget, is I want to vote on this item independently, if that's okay. So I'll move that the Board of Selectmen supports the addition of 3 civilian dispatchers,
I'll second.
with the understanding that hiring those 3 dispatchers gets us a dedicated narcotics officer and an SRO at the middle school. Very important side note.
Yes.
Okay, so Susan seconded. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor? Okay, opposed? Okay, thank you. And we respect your opinion, Pam, really do. Okay, so do we want to look at or have discussions on other proposed capital items? We decided that, I think we decided that we wanted to fund the full cost of Highland Farms, correct? But
Yes.
request that it gets bonded.
Well, first we decided to put it in.
Yes.
And then we'll do it to
Yep.
bonding, right?
Well, you don't do it to bonding.
No, but I'm
We're
just
going to
saying-
recommend.
Yeah.
Yep,
Right.
yep. And then, let's see, so does anyone have any concerns this evening about the decisions that we've made on the capital project, capital spending?
Yes.
Okay, Mark, go ahead.
Short Lane.
Okay?
Short Lane is quite expensive. All I can say is that I haven't been sold on the plan for Short Lane. I haven't been really part of the discussion. In particular, the boardwalk seems to me not necessary to do right away. I know that's not my job. I know that's Park and Rec Commission's job, but budget is our job. I just wonder what what the rest of the board feels about that.
I completely agree with you, and you and I have had this discussion, Mark. The paving of the parking lot, once again, these feel like luxury items in a climate where we should be conservative. And I think we should revisit this conversation. I don't think this is an imminent necessity when we do have parking down at the beach.
You're talking about paving the beach parking lot, yes.
Yeah.
Can I just point out the proposal that's in the budget does not include the paving.
I thought it said here includes the 125,000.
I don't see the 125,
That's the bonding.
The 625 includes an additional 125.
but what's in your budget does not include that 125 for the paving.
Okay. But I do think the short lane construction, just in general, I think this is something that maybe if we were going to be fiscally conservative with what the budget climate looks like it could do to us, what's coming down from Hartford, I think this would be an area that we could easily cut and revisit. I don't think this is imminent. I don't think it's...
Or defer.
Defer at this point. I think that the clearing of it has made it more useful. I feel like the sailing school can still use it. It's still a great addition as is.
Well said.
And I think the improvements could be enjoyed and taken advantage of, as they stand.
Thoughts?
I'm trying to remember, so if we don't do anything else, it can be used right now? I didn't think it could be.
No, it can be used right now. It's limited in its use, needs to be more fully utilized. You need to do a lot more clearing. This would have included clearing some land adjacent to the sewer plant, also move the wetlands, install a boardwalk and such.
Yeah.
So, it is usable as is, just not to the best level. And I think Parks and Rec felt that we've had that parcel for a number of years. We should do something. We should get moving on it.
Yeah.
So, this is one area that I think we could consider deferring if we are committed to the investment at Highland Farms. We're really, with this project, I see us sort of creating the same kind of amenity at Short Lane as at Highland Farms. It's, putting an asphalt pathway so the public can run, walk, or stroll, rollerblade around it. It's really intended, in my mind, I've heard also, to be sort of phase one of maybe a larger project on the Short Lane parcel. I would want to make sure that we do have the ability to activate that land if, for example, somebody would want to use it for a picnic, rent it out and put up a tent and have an event there that, as a revenue generator. I want to make sure that we are getting the land to a place where that could happen, or the Parks and Rec could, put up tents for the Weed Beach Fest in that area. So do I think we need all of this construction money at this time in light of the work we're doing at Pear Tree and Highland Farms? I could support a deferment of this project. Anybody else?
I go along with that.
Susan?
Yeah, I mean, originally, I was along the lines of, we have had the property for 6 years and haven't really had to utilize it. So if there is a way that it can still be utilized, not quite to this extent, but I'd rather have Highland Farms than, if it's going to be one or the other. And, I'm one that kind of like Kip, I don't usually like to spend money. I think also it's tough. Every year we sit here and we say it's going to get tougher and tougher. And I think we're at the end of the line where we are right. Like, this is probably the last time that we won't be able to get a budget without cutting some kind of services going forward. So I just hate to, in some ways, I hate to cut it because I think this is our last opportunity, but I could go along with that. I'm not that strongly supporting it, so if it's one or the other, but I do want to keep Highland Farms in there.
Yeah, my feeling is that you bought 2 properties.
Yeah.
One's adjacent to a beach, which is well-developed, has lots of services. Land's not going to go away. It's just not going to be utilized as much as you'd like to have it utilized. You bought another piece of property, 16 acres. You have no real, the uses there are going to be minimal until you actually put a pathway in and a few other things. And it seems to me that get that property used. You've got Weed Beach has already been used. You're talking about the ancillary to Weed Beach. So if you have to make a choice, do something with Highland.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
We never really talked about this in the budget development phase, but is it worthwhile keeping a small amount of money in for some improvements to Short Lane that, I don't really even know what I'm saying, if we need to level out the property or relocate some wetlands? Kate, I don't know if you had any discussions with
At a
Pam
lower
about that.
level dollar
Yeah.
amount? No.
Okay.
What if you left $50,000 in as a placeholder?
I'm sure they could do something with it.
Right.
They don't have to do it.
Even just picnic tables and,
Yeah, or leveling some area and reseeding it. I'm sure there's something that they could accomplish with it.
Yeah, I wouldn't want this cut to be a barrier to,
The land,
using it at all, so.
I think it's quite usable right now.
It is.
I was amazed at how beautifully it opened up with the clearing they've already done.
Okay.
Totally.
Well, I would support what Kip's recommending. Leave a small amount of money in there for some modest maintenance or improvements,
Mhm.
and then defer this for another time.
Now, does this also affect, I know that we were adding in some more staffing because of the maintenance of that
No.
area? So, no.
You really need
You still need all
the
that.
staffing.
Okay,
It's,
And if we're keeping
it's for
Highland-
Highland Farms, too.
Yeah.
okay.
Because
Oh,
of
that's
the
right.
mowing
The
and all of
combination.
that, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so I'll make a motion that we defer the Short Lane construction funding of $450,000, keeping $50,000 in the Board of Selectmen's budget for maintenance or improvements at this, modest maintenance improvements at this time.
I'll second the motion.
Okay, all those in favor? Okay, great, thank you. All right.
Do we need to talk about Highland or?
Yeah, sure, let's talk about Highland Farm, yep.
In the budget or in the bonding?
In the budget.
Oh, okay.
I strongly support the full expenditure for Highland Farm, put in the parking lots, get the path in, ADA compliant, get people out there using this beautiful piece of land. We spent a lot of money on it. I think it's really time to invest in getting the taxpayers out there using it.
Yeah, and I think, Kip said it well, that Weed Beach, you do have the amenities there to still be able to use Short Lane. I think this should be, we've put a lot of time and energy, and a lot of people have, into making this happen
And I think it can be used, Parks and Rec can use it to generate.
immediately. And yeah,
Revenue.
it's a revenue generator right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
Any other thoughts? Okay, I'll entertain a motion to continue to support the $600,000 budget item for Highland Farm improvement. Seconded by Mark, okay. All those in favor? Great.
Wait, who made the motion?
Jamie made the motion.
I made the motion,
You made
Mark
the motion,
seconded,
Mark
yep.
Thank you.
Okay. Anything else on capital? Kate, can we talk about those opticons?
Do you want me to talk about
Yeah,
them?
yeah, I'm
Um,
just trying to
think-
understand how necessary they are
They're
in this
necessary,
budget.
but not in this year, if you want to defer them. You know, so here's the deal. You can spend $100,000 for 3 years, or $300,000 in 3 years from now. You know, do you want to take a slow hit or one big hit? Up to you.
What is this? Is this fire?
This is the mechanism that it goes on the traffic lights.
Oh, yeah,
and
this is
so-
police traffic.
Right.
Right.
Right. You know,
Crap's expensive.
I prefer to try and keep your capital funding as level as possible, you know, things like that. I know other people don't agree with that theory and wait until the project's ready to go and then fund it. So, you know, it's your call. I've given you my proposal. I take no offense if you got it.
What's the useful life of this stuff?
I forget, I think it's about 10 years.
Not bondable,
I think, I don't
probably.
believe it was bondable.
And
Why
we
did
wouldn't
you
be
think I
spending
was
it this year, we would
We
be
would not be
setting it
spending it this year,
aside.
right. We, you know, the plan was not to do it for
Yeah.
another 2.
So that was kind of to Jack's point,
Yeah.
is to only tax people for projects that you're gonna do in the budget year.
That was the issue.
Makes sense.
That was the issue. Don't
Yeah.
tax
I'm fine
people.
with cutting.
Whatever.
I'm
Project
fine with
isn't
that
ready.
too.
Yeah, 10 years useful life.
Okay,
If it's not bondable, I would recommend that we defer it.
yep,
Yep.
yeah.
Okay.
We are supportive of it,
Yes.
but in
Not the
the
final.
project year, appropriate project year.
That's
Yeah,
Okay.
better.
I agree.
It's better management, yeah.
Okay.
You know,
Is there anything else we can do that with, Kate?
no, but I- No!
Kate's salary. That's not
Let us
bondable
do
either, is
it,
it?
wouldn't you rather we do it than the Board of Finance cut it?
Yeah.
I'd rather, I'm not looking for them to make cuts that we should be talking about.
You know, I gave you a budget that I thought was a
Yes.
budget I would have, you know,
Hey,
You did, you
think
did.
everything in it should be in it. That's why I gave it to you.
and that was then and this is now, so that's
Yeah.
why we're
Yep.
changing, so.
Yeah, no. Were you going to vote on the Opticom?
Yes, let's vote. I'll move that we defer the $100,000 set aside for the Opticons until a future budget year. May I have a second?
Second.
Kip, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. All right. I think I'm out of, I'll say it differently. I believe with those adjustments to the budget that we can feel confident that we're moving forward a very good budget that invests wisely in our town, doesn't overspend, invests in the areas where it will be most impactful to the taxpayers. I'll leave it open for any further discussion on other budget modifications.
None from me.
None from me.
Okay? No. Kip, no, Susan? Okay, so, let's see.
Okay, just wait a minute or two. Jen is writing down the numbers for us.
Okay.
You can read them out to them.
For this page, right?
Yes, to fill in the
Okay.
blanks.
That page, I know I have it.
Oh, good.
And then will you be able to recast these for us? I'll ask Jen. Not tonight, but.
Not tonight, but yes.
Yeah.
The would have been earlier in your agenda.
I know, I've moved my agenda, I know it's in here because I had it. It's a different color also. Well,
Yeah,
I-
it was, yes, orange color on paper, yeah. There it is.
Now, what I did here is, you see, there's this,
So you adjusted for the homestead.
I don't know, these are the number of homes that are on the grant list. Right?
Okay, well, that's another.
Same
I don't know, they're
breakdown for general fund as last year.
every home gets.
Yeah.
Operating,
Operating
Every
budget.
owner occupied.
Hey, close enough.
Okay.
All right, are we ready to take down these numbers?
Yes.
Sure.
Okay.
So the general operating is 33,992,828.
One more time, I
I got
was
it.
behind you.
I got it.
33 million.
33,992,828.
Thank you.
And now the debt service number that you're about to give us
Those
does not include the bonding that we're going to recommend.
Correct, because
Okay.
we're not presuming any
Okay.
debt service payments in that fiscal year.
Okay.
Okay, debt, 10,878,569.
Okay.
Transfers out is 3,323,358. That totals $48,194,755. Sewer operating is $4,029,645. Parking operating is $1,593,100. Capital is
I mean, that's a reserve fund?
the reserve fund, sorry, yeah. Reserve fund is $3,856,732. Sewer capital is $117,600. It's like a piper. And parking capital is $899,529.
Okay. So, I'm not going to restate all those numbers that Kate so kindly gave us. Thank you, Jen and Kate. But I will read the resolution. Whereas the Board of Selectmen have reviewed and evaluated the town administrator's proposed budget for fiscal year 2019-20 and the 6-year capital plan, and following the completion of this review, a number of changes and modifications have been made to the budget. Now therefore be it resolved that the Town of Darien Board of Selectmen hereby approve the modified annual budget for 2019-2020 and the 6-year capital plan. Be it further resolved that the 2019-2020 budget and 6-year capital plan be submitted to the Board of Finance for their consideration. May I have a motion to approve the budget that we just settled?
You do.
You guys go.
Okay, I'll take Mark.
All right.
May I have a second? Kip? All those in favor? Great, thank you very much. I feel that we had a very good, very deliberative, all-inclusive process. So thank you very much for that.
Probably does.
Okay, and I want to just mention that the next budget meeting for us, or for me for sure, and anybody that wants to join me, is on March 5th, the delivery of this budget to the Board of Finance. Okay, discuss and take action to approve a proposed tax appeal settlement that we discussed in executive session.
So moved.
Okay, why don't I read the motion? Darien Board of Selectmen hereby approves the settlement of the case of Parklands Office Park LLC versus Town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property to $7,900,000 from $8,413,000, effective with the grand list of October 1st, 2017, in accordance with the stipulation for judgment. Now, may I have a motion?
So So moved.
Kip, may I have a second? All right, Pam. All those in favor? Okay. Thank you. Jen, thank you very much
You're very
for your
welcome.
time.
Thank you,
And
Jen.
if it's not too much to ask, if you could recast these documents that you gave us
Sure.
this evening with our final changes.
They're actually all done, I'll send them around.
Perfect. Okay. Okay, transfers. We have an employee benefits transfer.
Right. During our negotiations with the police union, we engaged the town's actuary to evaluate some options for us on proposals for possible changes to the police pension plan. So it exceeded the amount that we had in the budget. And this is the,
Is David going to get that percentage from Jen before we even say it publicly?
I guess he did, yeah. Sorry.
That's okay. I don't.
I didn't
Sorry, I
mention
didn't mean
that.
to interrupt you. I was just watching.
Okay.
Sorry.
We'll make sure that we get that for everybody before we leave this evening. Okay. Any questions about tonight's transfer of $10,455 from contingency to actuarial services?
No
No?
question.
All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Mark, may I have a second? Susan, all those in favor? Okay, thank you. We have minutes of our meeting from February 4th, regular meeting minutes.
I've given my corrections to Kate already in writing.
Okay, perfect.
There were some just typos and things like that.
All right, any other corrections or additions?
Oh, I did have one question, Susan. On the fireworks thing, was it it came from the Chamber of Commerce or it came from the fireworks committee?
So the actual correct name was the charitable, geez, I should know this off the top of my head. The Darien Chamber of Commerce Charitable Foundation
No, but I'm
that they
saying,
set up just for the fireworks donations. I don't know if that really answers your question. That's why I had changed the minutes from,
well, it was basically on page 2.
Yeah.
The question is, with the big resolution, is it the resolution from the Chamber of Commerce / Fireworks Committee, or is it just the Chamber of Commerce, or is it
The
just
resolution was from both,
from both?
yes.
Okay, nice. Then disregard my comment on that one.
Any other changes to the meeting minutes of February 4th? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve as amended.
So moved.
Kip? Second? Pam? All those in favor? Great, thank you. Actually, she can vote on these even though she wasn't
She
here.
was here.
Oh, then we
Oh,
have to
Why-
make
sorry.
that change because,
Yeah, well, that was part of.
That's one of her additions.
that's one of
I think I
yours.
saw it on your, that's
Okay.
what I have.
All right.
Pam
Great.
was at both meetings, right?
Okay.
Right, yeah, I was at the,
Oh, yeah, I've got her out.
Okay,
Yeah.
Sorry.
That's okay.
all right, all those in favor?
I didn't look at your sheet saying that it.
Great, thank you. All right, special meeting minutes of February 4th.
Please include Pam.
Yes,
Exactly.
I apologize.
And I think you started at 6 o'clock or 6:05. I showed up at 6:45.
I note that you joined the meeting at 6:45.
Yes,
Yeah.
but the meeting started at 6:05, not 6:45.
Oh, sorry, you're right, thank you.
That's all. It's rare that there's a correction to a special meeting.
Okay.
Okay, may I have a motion to approve the special meeting minutes as amended? Susan Marks. I have a second. Pam. All those in favor? Great. Thank you. All right, agenda review. Looks like we might not have to talk about fracking.
I was going to say, I'll be off the table for a while.
Yep.
See what happens.
can always call me if things come to mind, okay?
Okay, yeah, seriously, we've been paying so much attention to the budget. and
Yes,
it's a million details, you know, but,
okay. Great. Then I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Kip, seconded by Pam. All those in favor? Great, thank you.